So a few months ago, I did a video on Homarr, and then a few weeks later, the devs put out their 1.0 update, which was significantly different from the Homarr that I had showed on my video. Both the setup was different, all of the settings and stuff were different, quite a bit of changes there. And a lot of people were frustrated in the comments saying, hey, when I'm installing, it looks nothing like this. So I figured today we'll go ahead and we'll switch over my Homarr to the 1.0 version. I'm going to show how to convert pre 1.0 to 1.0 really quickly. And then we're also just going to start from scratch and we're going to install Homarr, get it all set up. I'm going to try to make it look as much as I can like my previous instance because I really like the way that thing was set up. And we'll go through few of the changes, see how everything looks, see how everything's working compared to the previous version. And yeah, we'll see if Homarr is still my dashboard of choice. So without further ado, let's hop onto the computer. All right, so first, this is the way that I have Homarr in the pre 1.0 release that I did the original video on. And as a lot of people have mentioned, the setup is entirely different. A lot of integrations aren't working properly, so we're going to go ahead and get this converted into 1.0. But I just wanted to show what it looked like pre 1.0 first. This is how it ended up when I finished that video. Pi-hole also changed the way that they do APIs, so that's why this isn't working right now. And I'm wondering if when I upgrade Homarr to the 1.0, if it fixes that issue. So we'll find out. But if you do have your stuff set up pre-Homarr 1.0, you can actually do an export. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into your name at the top right here corner. We're going to go to manage. You're going to go to tools here and you're going to go to migrate to 1.0. And this is just going to export your boards so that you can easily bring them into 1.0. And then you're just going to press export data. It's going to give you an encryption key and then it's going to give you the folder with all those files in there. I've already done it, so that's giving it an extra one. But you're going to want to make sure that you copy this encryption key for when you go ahead and import. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try importing my board and seeing if everything works, but then we're also going to go ahead and add things manually so I can show that process as well, just like I did in the original video. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and install the new version of Homarr. You can actually install them side by side, but you do have to rearrange some of your ports if you want to do that. I completely uninstalled the old Homarr and I'm going to install the new one. So we just click on it. We're going to go to install. And there is one new step that we're going to have to do on the installation is we're going to have to create a secret encryption key. Now this tells you exactly what you have to do. We're going to copy this piece. We're going to go ahead and open up our terminal. And now we're just going to paste that in there, run it, and then you would grab that hex code. So you just go over there and then copy it. And then you're going to go ahead and paste that into your secret encryption key. And other than that, you don't have to change any other defaults if you don't want to. I left everything as default. It worked out fine. So we're just going to go ahead and press apply. So once you get it open, you're going to be welcomed with this page. And if you do have an import from Homarr from before 1.0, we can go ahead and import here. So I'm going to do this, but then I'm also going to create a new one where we're starting from scratch. But I do want to show how we can import as well. So we're going to go to import from Homarr before 1.0. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab that zip file that we had from prior, and we're going to go ahead and drop that on there. So it's going to be the migrate Homarr zip. And then you're just going to want to go ahead and have whatever boards you want to choose. You can choose if you want to only import the apps and not the actual boards. It's going to tell you your import summary of everything. We're going to press confirm, import, and continue. And then we're going to go ahead and put in that token that we had as well. That was the encryption token that I set to copy when we were doing our export. And then you're just going to go ahead and press confirm. Now here you can choose if you want to have analytics on or off. I'm going to turn analytics off on here and I will leave the rest of these as is. And then we're just going to press continue. Now I can go to my board, log in using, because I imported, I can log in using the same name that I had before. And there we go. Now, some of the things are not working. Some of the integrations have to be completely reset and redone. So let me show you how to do all of this if you're also going to go from a straight new clean install as well. Now, if we want to start from scratch, we're just going to go ahead and press the start from scratch. We're going to create a username and a password. I'm going to use the same ones that I used for my previous version. And then you're just going to go ahead and press create user. Now here you can choose if you want to send the analytics. I'm going to turn mine off for now. I might be able to change that later. And then for crawling and indexing, you can also choose whether you want to have these on or off. And we're just going to press continue. Now you can go ahead and go to create your first board. Now to create a board, it's pretty simple. We're just going to go ahead and press new board. I'm going to call this one Caddac. And you can change your column count here. You can also then change your column count after you've already created it. We can adjust it. So we're just going to do the default 10. We're just going to press create. We're going to open board. And this is what you're met with when you start a new board. It is completely blank. There's no default stuff like there was before. So now to start off, we can go ahead and press edit, and we can press add, and now we can go to new item. This will give us the ability to add basically anything, whether it's an app, pre-selected kind of apps, setups, all kinds of really cool stuff. If we go to try to add an app right now, there's not going to be anything showing up. And if we go to edit items, we're not going to have any apps yet. So what I would suggest we do is we're actually going to discard this change. We're going to go ahead and go to our preferences. We're just going to discard. We're going to go to integrations. So we're going to go ahead and start off with creating some. So the first one I want to do is Overseer. So we're going to call that one Overseer. So we're going to have to go ahead and grab our Overseer URL first. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that link. We're going to go ahead and paste that there. And now I have to go ahead and get my API key. So to get your API key from Overseer, you're just going to go to Overseer. You're going to go to settings, API key here. You're just going to copy that. Paste that in there. You're going to test create connection and create. And we're good to go. If there was an issue, it would tell us that there was an issue in the bottom right hand corner, but we're good. So now we can go ahead and do our next one. Let's go ahead and do my jellyfin next. So again, we're going to go ahead and grab our URL. So we're just going to grab the URL from here. And then I'm going to do the username and password because I want it to be with a specific user, and this just makes it a little bit easier for me. So I'm going to find it using my Bitwarden. And then again, we're going to test connection and create. And there we go. And we're just going to slowly go down the list. I'm going to do all of these without talking through every single one. The way to get your API or your logins for each of these integrations is going to be different. And the best way to figure out how to do that is usually to just Google how to find API for so-and-so. If you do need any help, you can let me know down in the comments or on the Discord. I'll be happy to try to help you find your API key or get your integrations working. So unfortunately, the Pi-hole integration is still in a work in progress because they still have it set up as an API, and Pi-hole doesn't really use API, and there's a weird workaround that you have to do right now. I'm not overly happy with the solution, so I'm just going to leave it as is right now. Now, I also wanted to show you this Docker page because it'll show you all of the apps that are currently hosted on your local PC, the same server as Homarr. It doesn't seem to grab anything that's not within the same hardware, so it's not checking it's not noticing anything from my other server that's running, so my Home Assistant, and then the Pi-hole that's running on its own little Raspberry Pi. But this is a really great way to add a bunch of apps that do not have integrations. Keep in mind that if an app doesn't have an integration, you still have to set up the integration. This is just going to allow you to quick create apps, but not the full integrations. But we can add our app, so we can just do that. Punch this in. That's why we copied our address here. And we can add those, and then we have those apps here now. Very quick and easy. But as we notice, if we add them here, they're not going to be added as an integration. So for example, an app like Sonar, which I know does have an integration, if we go to add that and then we punch this in here, it's going to go ahead and add that app in for me, but the integration still has to be set up. So I still have to go to new integration, go to Sonar, and get that one implemented. I just realized that Radar does have one, so that's cool. So I have to set up that implementation as well. So you do have to set up all your implementations separately. Those will not be automatically done. Now, during the integration process, when you go ahead and add a new integration, you can make it so that it automatically creates an app. And I would highly suggest you do this when creating your integrations. I didn't do that, and it ended up requiring a little bit more work. All right, so I got a bunch of my integrations set up. We did a couple of those apps that I talked about previously. So now let's go back to our board and actually get our board worked on. So we're going to go ahead and hit the edit icon up here. We're going to go to add. We're going to go to new item. Let's go ahead and add an app first. And let's go ahead and edit that. And we can now choose an app that exists. So if we go ahead and go to Sonar, and we're just going to leave this as is. We press save changes. It is going to go ahead and grab that. Now from here, if we want to, we can go ahead and edit some stuff on here. So if we go to advanced options, we can change the title, we can give it custom CSS, and we can change the border if we want to. We want to go ahead and actually edit the image or anything else. Unfortunately, you have to go back here, you have to go to preferences, and we got to go to our apps, and then we go to Sonar, and then you can change your icon from here. So if you want, you go to Sonar, and then you can choose another Sonar icon. I don't like the fact that it said 4K on there. So now if I go back here, I refresh this. Oh, want to make sure that we leave there. It'll save first. And now we can have our different icons. So that's cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bulk create the rest of the apps really quickly from this screen, so I don't have to do each of them individually. So we're going to go ahead and do Overseer. Let's go ahead and have image on there too. We're going to do our MZD, Qubit. We already have Sonar done, so we don't need to worry about that. We got Radar. We'll get Plex in there. We'll do my Jellyfin. Uptime Kuma, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have integration, so we're fine there. And we're going to go ahead and bulk add these. So we're just going to replace all of these. Really wish that this was automatically filled out. And we're going to press add. So now all of our apps should be here. Now I'm going to edit a couple of these because either the logo didn't load properly or I don't like the logo that's there. So let's do Bazaar. And we'll go ahead, go back to our board here. And I can go ahead and get the rest of those added. So let's go ahead and edit some of our settings for the actual dashboard. So if we go into our dashboard, we can change our title, our media, we can upload a logo, and now it makes it a lot easier where we can upload a logo directly to here instead of having to find a location on your server and then mentioning and then referencing that. So it's a lot easier now. And then if we go to our layout, we can go ahead and change our column count that we saw earlier. We can add a layout if we want to multiply those ones up, and we can create new names for them. We can change our background if we want. And again, this is also nice because you can do a local image and you can change the way that the image also shows. So if we go ahead and grab one, we'll grab that. And then if we go to appearance, we can change our primary color, our secondary color. We can add additional CSS. We can change the behavior, so you can disable the app status. So that's the little icon that shows beside the app if it's good or not. You can change access control, so if you want to have multiple users. And then the danger zone, this is just saying, you can rename your board, but any links to the board is going to break. You can change your visibility, and then you can delete it from here. All right, so here we are back on our dashboard. We have that wallpaper going. We have that new picture up in the left-hand corner. So let's go ahead and add a few items other than just the app shortcuts. So we're going to go to edit up here in the corner. Plus, we're going to do new item, and let's add some widgets first. So one of the widgets that I really liked is the current media server streams. This allows me to know when other people are watching things on either Plex or Jellyfin, so we can add both. If we go ahead and do that, and we save our changes, if anybody is watching anything on my Plex or Jellyfin servers, it'll show up here. This lets me know that I shouldn't update either of those apps while people are watching so that it doesn't interrupt their streams. And it's usually just my family members, so it's not a big deal, but that really helps there. So that's a pretty good one. Another one that we can add is download client. And now what I like to do with these is, again, we can choose to combine these two, but I like to keep these ones separate. And what I'll also do is if we go to the NZBD, what I also like to do is go to the advanced options, and then we're going to make the border color kind of match the NZBD downloader color. And what this will allow us to do is I know that this one, without having to look in the little bottom corner, I know that this one is for NZBD. And then if we go ahead and add another one, not a good way to make these look pretty together, but we'll do Qubit torrent, and then we'll do border color. We'll try to find something close, save that change, refresh it. And so that's my Qubit torrent, right? And let's go and see what else we can add. Indexer manager status, I like this one. This allows me to just keep an eye on my indexers. This one could be a skinny tall one if we want. It just allows me to keep an eye on some of them. Sometimes they'll go down, sometimes there'll be an issue with Cloudflare or something and I have to fix it. So this helps, and then you can automatically start a new test, which is kind of cool from these. This is the nice thing about the integrations, is that you can interact with those apps. It's not just displaying information, which is cool. Let's go ahead and take a look at my media request list. So I use Overseer, so we can go ahead and integrate this with Overseer. And it'll go ahead and just show anything that has been submitted and then either approved or waiting for approval or what have you. I recently downloaded all the Final Destination and Conjuring movies, or Conjuring movies. And so I've got them all there, but that'll show the list. It's not a scrollable list, so it's all dependent on how long you make this. It's not scrollable, so do keep that in mind. But that one's pretty handy to have as well. Let's go ahead and add one. Let's do something entity state. So we're going to add something from my Home Assistant. So if I go ahead and check Home Assistant, and we can change our entity here. So an entity that I like to use is the thermostat temperature, and I like to do this called house temp. It's a lot more handy in the wintertime. It allows me to check and see, when I'm not home, what my house temperature is like. And then if we want to, we can put Celsius. So I can grab the degree symbol there, put it in there, and now it'll say 20 degrees Celsius. So that's kind of cool as well. Let's see what else we can add. One that I like doing as well is the calendar, especially since I'm trying to keep up on shows. So by default, the calendar isn't going to have anything really listed on it. But if we go into our edit, and then we grab our integration. So let's do sonar and radar. If I want, I can do music with LiDAR or books with radar as well, but we'll just do the shows and movies. And you can choose release types. So physical release, in cinemas, digital release. In cinemas and digital release is really all that we really care about. And we can go ahead and save those changes. And now it's going to tell us whenever something is releasing. So I think if we leave editing mode and then I click on one, it'll tell me, hey, Nunnas is coming out on May 6th. Lilo and Stitch is coming out on the 19th, right? So that's pretty cool, and you can launch your radar directly from there as well. So that is pretty sweet, and it's only going to show stuff that we currently have being monitored. So another thing we can add is categories. So if we go up here and we do a category, we can name this one, let's call it the R's maybe. And if we want, we can expand this open, and we can throw all of our R's into this category. And it's not easy to do. It would be cool if there was just a way for you to be like, add things to this, but that's not a feature. So we can do that, and then we can easily hide and expand that, so that's cool. They've added some new functionality for categories. So if we add another one, and we call this one 2, it's going to add it below. There's going to be this blank space, and you can't move the categories like that. But what we can do is if we want 2 to be above the R's, we just press move up and it'll move that up. And then if we want, we can move it back down. You can easily add categories up, above, and below, but there's not really much else. This is still a little bit better than it was pre 1.0. But I still do think that they should really improve categories, especially since we no longer have a sidebar. So not having a sidebar is kind of a bummer. I really liked using it. It was very, very handy. It was nice to have some really quick information that maybe I didn't want to see all the time, so that when I didn't want to see it, it was out of the way. And then when I did want to see it, it was over. But we got that going. And the other new thing that they've added is called dynamic sections. This is basically like a folder, but it doesn't collapse like the R's. So if we put stuff in here, so let's say I want to put this in there. We'll make it a little bit smaller. Actually, let's move these things over so we can really show how it works. So things are going to kind of squish around and move in there as we resize. Let's remove that. So if we go and make this bigger, it's just going to kind of move things around. I don't really see the benefit of these very much. Maybe they have more plans to make this a little bit more functional. But as of right now, it just seems like a way to kind of organize things within their own little box, and kind of keep it that way. And then you can move all of them together as one. So that's a partial benefit. But I don't think it's the most useful tool on the planet. But if you find use for it, then, you know, power to you. So now give me a few minutes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to set this up the way that I had it previously on pre 1.0, which is a layout that I really did like, and we'll come back and we'll see how it looks. Okay, so here is what the layout ended up being. Unfortunately, they got rid of a few of the widgets I liked using. So this is what it looks like now in 1.0. This is what it looked like previously in the pre 1.0. And we've lost the ability to download for the current download speeds, which I thought was pretty helpful, especially when qBittorrent and my NZBD clients were both downloading at the same time. It was really nice to see that information. You're unable to make these any smaller than one tile. So you can't make this a half tile tall. So you have all this wasted space, which I think is silly. Not a big fan of that. So I used to have the time up here, the time and date, and then I used to have the weather down here, but it has to be one tile tall. So I can't do that anymore because again, they got rid of the sidebar entirely. So if you import something with a sidebar, there's an option where it says throw the sidebar stuff at the bottom of the screen. So it is unfortunate they got rid of the sidebar. The whole pie hole situation isn't fixed. You know, they're with pie holes changes and then Homarr's changes. It just isn't properly working. And I've tried a couple of the methods to try to get working. It's not working great for me right now. So as of right now, I just have the ability to launch the app. I don't have the actual integration with the DNS stuff set up here. And I believe it's still listed as a current issue on their GitHub. But I do have most of the rest of the stuff set up the way I want to. I got rid of the background because it was a little bit distracting. Maybe I'll add one a little bit later. I ended up changing my name and doing that kind of stuff up here. But one of the things that we talked about last time that was a little bit frustrating and is still somewhat frustrating is the fact that the mobile and desktop boards are entirely separate from one another. Now you can very easily switch between them, between boards from here, but they are still entirely separate. But we're going to create a mobile one, and we're going to see if we can just resize this one into a mobile one for quick use. So if I go ahead and I go back here and I go to my preferences, we're going to go to my board. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to duplicate this board. We're going to call this one Caddac Mobile. I'm going to create that. And now we're going to do set as our mobile board. Let's go ahead and open that. And this is now our mobile board. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that it had copied our dashboard over exactly. So if we were to actually look at our mobile dashboard right now, it would look really stupid. As you can see here, it looks hilarious because all the icons are tiny. So we do have to end up adjusting that. Now, one easy way to get a good start here is we can't have this many columns on mobile. And if we copy from the desktop to the mobile board, we can just go to the cog wheel here. So we're going to go to layout here. We're going to change this to, I'm going to call this mobile. And we're going to change this down to 3 because I think 3 is going to be a good size. So if we go ahead and save those changes, and now we go back, all of the icons are going to be much larger. And if we go ahead and add something new, it's going to be large as well. And now if we go ahead and look on our mobile device again, we can see that the icons do fit a little bit better. Now we do have to do some resizing for some of the other ones. So what we're actually going to do is I'm going to do these quickly on mobile because then I know they're going to fit. So editing on mobile is a little bit more frustrating. You're going to want to go to whatever section you want to edit first, then hit your edit, because if you try to scroll, if you touch anything, it's going to move it, right? So it's a little bit more frustrating. So we're just going to widen that out. We're going to widen this out. All right, now we're going to save that. And let's go ahead, move this down. Actually, we can probably move it. Yeah, let's move that down. Widen that out a little bit so that we have a couple of records I can show. We want our calendar to actually work, so we got that like that. Let's move the indexer manager down. So we're going to deal with this not resizing issue again. Let's move you over here. All right. We'll save that. Go back to edit. We'll make this one a little bit bigger. Save that. Let's see how our layout looks. We will go back to edit. We're going to move this up here. We'll move this over. And we may as well make these the width since there's not much else that we could do there. Save that. And I mean, I think that's a pretty decent layout for now. It serves the same purpose. We kind of got it laid out nice. And now we've got our mobile layout. So with all that said, Homarr 1.0 is quite a big upgrade. There's a lot of changes. Overall, I think visually it looks a lot better. Functionality-wise, there are certain things that are a lot better in 1.0. There are certain things that I think they've stepped back and they've kind of taken a few steps back on. I'm not a big fan of the sidebar being missing. That was such a big element for me, especially on the mobile version, because it was really nice to have that info really quick. Just press a little button, the sidebar comes over, I can look at all that information, press it again, it hides all of that really nicely. And it's not one of the categories where it's vertical, it kind of comes over from the side. Really did like the sidebar, so I'm hoping maybe at some point they bring that back, or they bring in something that replaces its functionality, because I really did like the sidebar. I am a little bit disappointed that we can't make any of the tiles half size. So for example here, the weather, I can't make the weather any shorter than this. So we have all of this wasted space around the weather here, whereas previously, as mentioned, you know, I had the time and the weather. So stuff like that kind of frustrates me a little bit as well. I'm really hoping that maybe the dynamic sections gets a little bit more functionality, because as it is right now, it's just kind of a folder. It'd be nice if they added some more functionality to that, maybe to replace some of the stuff from the old sidebar stuff. That would be great. And the last thing is something where they've definitely improved it from the previous version, is the linking a desktop and mobile dashboard layout. It is unfortunate that you have to do them entirely separate of one another. It is unfortunate that they're basically just two separate boards that you have to maintain. It would be really nice if you linked two boards. If when you added something to the desktop one, it would get added to the mobile one, and then maybe you just have to make a few adjustments there. It is a little bit of a pain in the butt, especially for me, where majority of my use case for Homarr is using it on mobile when I'm not home. And having to balance the two all the time is a little bit of a pain in the butt. And sometimes I'll forget to add something to mobile if I add it to the desktop. Sometimes I'll add it to mobile and forget to add it to the desktop side. Whole bunch of those situations. I really do wish that there's some way to kind of create a better linkage, even if it's just a pop-up where it's like, hey, you're adding this to the desktop, you want to add this to your mobile layout as well. That'd be pretty sweet. Just something to maybe for them to improve on in the future, but I do think 1.0 is a pretty good upgrade. The overall layout is a lot nicer. The settings are a lot easier to maneuver. They've made a lot of stuff. They've really improved a lot of quality of life stuff. Made it a lot easier for people who maybe aren't nearly as technically savvy to get a lot of things working. And then, you know, I really do hope that the Pi-hole stuff ends up getting fixed. It was a mix of Homarr upgrading and then Pi-hole changing the way that their API worked. Those things happening around the same time made it so that the whole Pi-hole controls are a little bit of a pain in the butt right now. But it does seem like there's a lot of people working on it, and there's some workarounds that I'm just not a big fan of. So I'm hoping it becomes a little bit more of a standard fix. Until then, you know, I have no issues just quickly hopping into my Pi-hole or something for now. But yeah, overall, I'm super impressed with Homarr. The 1.0 upgrade is great. I really do hope they continue to improve it. They've done a really good job, and I've been using Homarr a lot since I installed it in that previous video. As I mentioned, it is my mobile way of monitoring everything, especially when I'm not home. I have it so that I'm able to access it from outside my network, and Unraid is just not very pretty on a mobile form factor. So Homarr does make that a lot easier, and that's how I've been using it quite a bit. So really do like it. I hope that this video helped you out, and if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like subscribed. I'm really curious if you guys were using Homarr before 1.0, if you're just trying to get into it in 1.0, what you think about it. Do you like the changes that they made? Do you dislike the changes that they made? Let me know down in the comment section below. I read absolutely everything, so I really would like to see you guys' opinions. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you want to see any other videos relating to my Unraid and networking and server stuff, you can check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.